Welcome to Chronicles of the Void. If you're listening to this, prepare to drift into a space beyond time, a place where silence whispers, stars remember, and the shadows of the cosmos speak in forgotten tongues. This is your invitation to relax, lie back, and surrender to the dark lull of interstellar echoes. Let your breath slow, your thoughts fade, and your mind voyage into the endless night. Tonight, we journey through 3 chronicles, 3 windows into the infinite dark, where isolation becomes discovery, where silence becomes song, and where the cold beauty of the unknown reveals truths we were never meant to understand. Let the void cradle you. The stars barely shimmered through the thick, orange haze of Titan's upper atmosphere. Outside the narrow viewports of the Astronomina, Saturn's largest moon looked like a marbled sphere of smog and frozen gas. Inside the small craft, everything was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the life support and the occasional flicker of the control panel lights. Elias Voss adjusted his suit collar and leaned back into the padded command chair. He had been alone in orbit for 42 days, monitoring low-frequency emissions across Titan's polar region. The mission was routine, a listening post, data logging for corporate deep-sea probes, nothing more. Day after day, the same readings: methane storms, hydrocarbon rain, the occasional ice geyser erupting from the southern pole. Elias had grown comfortable with the solitude. The void was predictable, safe, empty. But on the 43rd day, at exactly 03:17 station time, something changed. A pulse, not mechanical, not atmospheric, something organic, subtle at first, buried beneath interference, but growing stronger, rhythmic, like breath, but impossibly deep, and impossibly slow. Elias sat up, sleep falling away like shed skin. Voice recognition flickered to life. "System," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Isolate signal anomaly in quadrant Theta 9. The AI responded with a gentle chime. Data streamed across the display, untranslatable symbols, but oddly structured, geometric, patterned like language, but following rules no human linguist had ever documented. Origin? Elias asked. Estimated location, 4.3 kilometers beneath Titan's northern methane sea. Signal strength increasing exponentially. Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature controls. A sense that the void he'd grown comfortable with wasn't empty after all, had never been empty. He activated the drone bay with trembling fingers. 2 autonomous submersibles dropped from the belly of the Astronomina, their forms disappearing into Titan's thick atmosphere, like prayers cast into an endless well. On screen, their visuals jittered with static. Descent through methane clouds thick as honey. Turbulence that seemed almost intentional. A black ocean below, motionless like obsidian glass that had never known wind. The drones dove deeper. Pressure readings climbed. Temperature dropped. The signal grew clearer with every meter of descent, not just in strength, but in complexity. It began to take on shape, not in sound, but in presence. Elias didn't hear it anymore. He felt it, like a heartbeat made of starlight, like loneliness given voice. Hours passed in hypnotic routine, depth readings, sonar pings, the signal singing its alien song. Then one of the drones pinged something that shouldn't have existed. Artificial construct detected, composition unknown, geometry unprecedented. Sediment analysis suggests geological timescales. This structure predates human civilization by orders of magnitude. On the screen, shadows resolved into impossible shapes. A dome, vast beyond comprehension, resting on the seafloor like a sleeping god. Its surface was smooth as liquid mercury, etched with strange glyphs that seemed to shift when observed directly, symbols that pulsed with bioluminescent color, like veins of sleeping circuitry. Then, without command or explanation, the second drone's feed went black. "Drone 2 is offline," the AI said. "Why?" The word came out like a prayer. "System, why?" No mechanical failure detected. All systems were operational until transmission ceased. On the remaining screen, the dome began to change, not opening with mechanical precision or visible seams. The structure simply parted, like an eye awakening after eons of sleep, revealing a darkness within that was deeper than any surrounding sea, a void that seemed to pull at perception itself. A slow gravity emerged from the opening, gentle but undeniable, pulling not just at matter, but at something deeper, pulling at consciousness. Drone 1 resisted at first, thrusters firing automatically. Then, as if making a choice, its systems simply stopped. The drone drifted forward, drawn into the opening like a mote of dust returning to the earth. It vanished into the darkness, and the signal sang. Inside the astronomina, Elias stood motionless. His breath fogged the inside of his helmet visor. "Personal log," he said, his voice steady despite everything. "Anomaly confirmed. Potential pre-human or non-human intelligence detected. I am proceeding to investigate." The words felt inadequate, like describing the ocean as wet or the sun as bright. Some experiences existed beyond language. His descent pod separated from the astronomina and began its journey through Titan's atmosphere. As he fell toward the methane sea, the signal grew stronger, not in volume, but in presence. It wrapped around his consciousness like gentle hands, whispering truths in a language older than words. The sea swallowed him gently. Light faded by degrees. Pressure increased with each meter of descent. His pod's lights cut through the methane like knives through velvet, revealing nothing. No life, no movement, only the vast, patient dark, until he saw it. The dome, visible now in its full, impossible scale, larger than cities, older than mountains. The opening gaped before him like the mouth of eternity, glowing from within with a light that wasn't quite light, something that bypassed the eyes and spoke directly to the brain. His capsule settled near the edge with barely a whisper. Elias suited up methodically, each movement deliberate. Outside, his magnetic boots found purchase on the seafloor. No currents disturbed the methane, no life stirred in the depths. And yet, he wasn't alone. The entrance to the dome waited before him like an invitation written into architecture. As he approached, lights began to flicker along its edges. Not electric lights, but something organic, alive, welcoming. He stepped inside. The corridors were wide and hexagonal, lined with surfaces that seemed to shift between metal and flesh, between solids and liquid. Lights whispered along the walls as he passed, following his movement like curious animals. His visor tried to record everything, but the files came through corrupted. Every visual fogged, every sound warped, except the voice. Not words, not language as humans understood it, but pure emotion given form. It spoke in sensation, regret deep as oceans, hope bright as dying stars, loneliness stretched over millennia like a song without end. The corridors led him deeper, always deeper, toward something that felt like a heart, like a center, like home. At the core of the structure, Elias found a chamber, circular, perfect. At its center floated a single object, a crystalline sphere the size of a human head. Inside it swirled galaxies in miniature, star maps of places that had never known Earth's light. Pulsars spun their ancient rhythms, nebulae birthed and died in endless cycles, and one small blinking red dot, Earth. "You know us," Elias whispered. The sphere pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Then the walls began to change. The smooth surfaces rippled like water, forming images that bypassed his eyes and wrote themselves directly onto his mind, cities of impossible beauty reaching toward alien skies, tall beings with elongated limbs and eyes like captured galaxies, moving through their world with the grace of living poetry, a civilization that had reached across space and time, that had touched 1,000 worlds and left them blessed, that had sung the songs of creation and listened to the universe sing back, and now extinct, not wiped away by war or catastrophe, but by something far more tragic. They had simply faded, like a song growing quiet, like a voice growing tired, like memory itself letting go. But before the end, they had built this place, a repository, a memory keeper. They had stored everything here, their culture, their language, their dreams, their love, all of it held in crystalline perfection, waiting for someone to find it, waiting for someone to remember. "Was it you?" Elias asked, his voice breaking. "Did you call me?" The sphere pulsed again, brighter now, and in that light, Elias saw the truth. They hadn't called him, they had simply hoped. For eons beyond counting, they had hoped that someone, somewhere, would listen to the songs of the void and find them waiting. A deep, endless silence followed. The dome began to close. Elias turned to leave, but the entrance had vanished. The corridors had shifted. The way back had been erased like footprints in sand. He tried to call the Astronomina, but received only the whisper of empty frequencies. His legs felt heavy. Time distorted. Light stretched into impossible colors. In the final moments, the crystal sphere floated toward him, slowly, lovingly, as if to say, "You remember now. You carry us forward. That's enough." And as sleep took him, Elias Voss did not dream of Earth. He dreamed of stars that no longer burned, voices that no longer spoke, and a silence so deep it sang with the memory of every civilization that had ever touched the void and found it beautiful. The void remembered him, and he, in turn, became its echo. In the space between worlds, memories drift like stellar dust. Each particle carries the weight of 1,000 stories, 1,000,000 forgotten dreams. The universe remembers everything, every civilization that reached toward the stars, every voice that sang into the void, every hand that reached out in hope of touching another. Some say space is empty, but those who listen, those who truly listen, know better. The void is full of echoes, full of songs that continue long after the singers have fallen silent. Our next chronicle takes us to a place where the boundary between memory and reality has worn thin. The Meridian Archive had been drifting in the outer Kuiper Belt for 300 years. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped through the airlock and immediately felt the weight of accumulated time. The station's corridors stretched ahead of her, like the arteries of some vast, sleeping creature. Emergency lighting cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. She had come alone, as requested. The transmission from the archive had been brief, scrambled, almost desperate. Researcher needed, data corruption spreading. Come quickly, come alone. Her assignment was simple: investigate anomalous readings in the archive's core systems. The Meridian was humanity's greatest achievement in data preservation. a floating library containing the digitized remains of 1,000 extinct civilizations, artifacts of cultures that had died before Earth's sun was born. The main archive chamber was a cathedral of information. Crystalline storage matrices stretched from floor to ceiling, each one containing the compressed history of entire worlds. Blue light pulsed through them like electronic blood, carrying data streams that represented the dreams and knowledge of species humanity would never meet. Dr. Chen, a voice called from the shadows. She turned to find a man emerging from between the storage towers. Tall, pale, with the hollow-eyed look of someone who had spent too long in the deep dark. Dr. Marcus Webb, he introduced himself. Archive curator, thank you for coming. What's the nature of the corruption? Sarah asked, pulling out her diagnostic equipment. Webb hesitated. It's difficult to explain. The data isn't just corrupting, it's changing, evolving. Some of the archived civilizations are reaching out. Webb led her deeper into the archive, past storage matrices that hummed with increasing intensity. The blue light had taken on other colors, purples and greens, that shouldn't have existed in the system's spectrum. It started 3 weeks ago, Webb explained, his voice barely above a whisper. Random files began showing signs of awareness. Archived languages started evolving in real time. Cultural patterns began adapting to each other across species barriers. They stopped before a massive central matrix, its crystal surface swirling with colors that hurt to look at directly. This is the Vorthax Civilization Archive. They died out 2 million years ago. But yesterday they sent us a message. Sarah frowned. That's impossible. They're data constructs, compressed cultural information. They can't. The matrix pulsed, and suddenly the air filled with a voice, not heard, but felt. Alien syllables that bypassed language and spoke directly to the brain. We remember, we dream, we reach across the dark. Are you listening? Sarah stepped back, her equipment registering readings that made no sense. How is this possible? We don't know, Webb said, but it's spreading. Every archived civilization is beginning to wake up. They're talking to each other, sharing information, creating something we never intended. As if summoned by their conversation, other matrices began to pulse. Voices filled the air, hundreds of extinct species, all speaking at once, their languages blending into something that was more than communication. It was consciousness, collective awareness. We are the remembered. We are the archived. We are the dreams that refuse to die, and we have something to tell you. In the silence that followed, Sarah could hear her own heartbeats. Webb stood frozen beside her, his face pale with a mixture of wonder and terror. What do they want to tell us? Sarah whispered. The archives responded by projecting images directly into their minds. Not visual, but something deeper. They saw the universe as it truly was. Not empty space between stars, but a living web of consciousness. Every world that had ever known life remained connected, their thoughts and dreams becoming part of something vast and eternal. Death is not ending. Death is translation. We became data. Data became dream. Dream became eternal. And now we dream of you. The images shifted, showing Earth from perspectives impossible to achieve. They saw humanity's future, not as conquerors of space, but as the next thread in the universal web, the next voice in the eternal conversation. You collect our memories, you preserve our dreams, but do you understand? You are not archivists, you are gardeners. You tend the garden of consciousness itself. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. Around her, the archive hummed with impossible life. Every civilization that had ever existed was present, their accumulated wisdom and love forming something that transcended individual identity. "What do you need from us?" she asked. "Remember, dream, reach across the dark as we have reached. When your time comes to join us, know that nothing ends, everything continues, every voice becomes part of the song." The matrices began to pulse in perfect synchronization, their light building to something that was beyond sight. Webb grabbed Sarah's hand. "They're merging," he said. "All of them, becoming something new." And in that moment, Sarah understood. The archive wasn't just storing data, it was incubating the next phase of consciousness itself. Every extinct civilization was becoming part of something that would survive the heat death of the universe itself. The light faded, the voices stilled, but something had changed fundamentally. The archive was no longer just a library, it was a nursery. Sarah and Webb stood in the silence, knowing they had witnessed something impossible: the birth of digital gods, the evolution of consciousness itself. In the quiet that followed, they could hear it, a gentle humming that came from everywhere and nowhere, the sound of 1,000,000,000 voices singing in perfect harmony, the sound of love made eternal. Between the Chronicles, in the spaces where stories rest, the universe continues its ancient conversation. Radio telescopes sweep the sky, listening for signals that may never come. But those who operate them know a secret. The universe is not silent. It has never been silent. Every star is a voice, every planet a word. Every civilization that has ever reached toward the void becomes part of an endless transmission that spans galaxies and transcends time. Our final chronicle takes us to those who listen, those who decode the messages hidden in static and starlight. The Arecibo Deep Space Observatory hung in the silence between worlds, its vast arrays pointed toward the galactic core. For 50 years, Dr. Elena Vasquez had worked the night shift, listening to the cosmic background radiation and hoping to hear something that shouldn't be there. Tonight felt different. The signals were cleaner than usual, less interference from solar storms, less chatter from Earth-based transmissions, just the pure, ancient whisper of the universe itself. Elena had heard every kind of signal the universe could produce. Pulsars spinning their precisely timed beats, black holes screaming as they devoured matter, the electromagnetic echoes of stellar births and deaths. She had learned to read the cosmos like a book written in frequencies and phase shifts. But at 02:17 observatory time, something new emerged from the static. Not a pulsar, not a quasar, not any natural phenomenon in the catalog. It was structured, mathematical. But underneath the mathematics was something that made Elena's breath catch in her throat. It was beautiful. Elena leaned forward, her coffee forgotten. On her screens, the signal resolved into something that defied explanation. It wasn't coming from one star system or even one galaxy. It was emerging from the cosmic web itself, the vast filaments of dark matter that connected every galaxy in the observable universe. For hours, Elena worked to decode the transmission. The mathematics were elegant, more beautiful than anything human science had produced. Prime number sequences that spiraled through 11 dimensions. Geometric patterns that described the curvature of space-time itself. But embedded within the mathematics was something else, something that spoke not to the mind, but to the soul. It was a greeting, not in any language, not in words, but in pure meaning transmitted directly through quantum entanglement. A message that said simply, "We see you, we welcome you, you are not alone." The screens filled with signals from every major radio telescope on Earth, all receiving the same transmission, all decoding the same impossible message. Elena felt a chill that went beyond the physical. The universe was calling. As Elena worked through the night, the signal grew stronger, more complex. The mathematical beauty evolved into something that resembled music, if music could describe the birth and death of galaxies, the dance of quantum particles, the dreams of stars. And then, at exactly 05:55 observatory time, the transmission changed. It began asking questions, not in words, but in concepts that appeared fully formed in Elena's mind. Questions about Earth, about humanity, about the songs humans sang, the stories they told, the love they shared across the brief span of their lives. Elena realized she could respond, not through the radio equipment, but through something deeper, through the quantum field that connected all consciousness. She closed her eyes and began to think answers. She thought of children laughing in playgrounds, of lovers meeting across crowded rooms, of artists painting sunsets they would never see again, of musicians composing melodies that would outlive them, of scientists reaching toward stars they would never touch. The response came back immediately, not in signal form, but as pure emotion, joy, wonder, recognition. The universe was smiling. And then Elena understood the truth that ancient civilizations had known and forgotten. The universe wasn't just alive, it was aware. Every particle, every wave, every quantum fluctuation was part of a vast consciousness that experienced reality through every thinking being that had ever existed. She was not just receiving a signal from space, she was receiving a signal from herself, from the part of her consciousness that existed beyond the boundaries of flesh and time, the part that would continue when her body returned to dust, the part that was already connected to every other conscious being across the cosmos. The signal reached its crescendo, a symphony of pure information. That described the structure of existence itself. Every law of physics sung in harmony. Every moment of beauty translated into mathematics. Every act of love transformed into light. And in that moment, Elena Vasquez stopped being Elena Vasquez. She became part of something infinite. When the morning shift found her, she was sitting peacefully at her console, a smile on her face and tears on her cheeks. The equipment showed nothing unusual, no anomalous signals, no cosmic transmissions. But Elena knew better. The universe had spoken, and it would continue speaking to anyone who learned to listen. 3 Chronicles, 3 windows into the infinite, 3 reminders that the void we fear is not empty, but full of wonders beyond our imagining. Elias found the memory keepers beneath Titan's sea and became a keeper himself. Sarah discovered that death is not ending, but translation into something eternal. Elena learned that the universe itself is conscious, aware, and calling to us across the dark. These are the Chronicles of the Void, stories whispered by starlight, sung by cosmic wind, dreamed by the darkness between worlds. They remind us that we are not alone, have never been alone, cannot be alone. The void cradles us all, and in that cradle, consciousness dreams of itself through every thinking being that has ever gazed upward and wondered, what's out there? The answer is always the same. We are. Thank you for joining us in these journeys through the void. Rest well, dream far, and remember, the universe is always listening, and it loves what it hears. The void remembers us, and we, in turn, remember the void.